Just got my swivel head gear wrench ratchet and a 6-inch extension with a 10mm. This has a little swivel on it. This is a Craftsman brand swivel extension kind of thing. I like it pretty good. Go ahead and break these free. I'm placing the bolts that I removed from the water pump that's on there already onto the new water pump, so I know where they go. You can see these are two different lengths, so I don't want to have to think about it later. I'll just stick them on there now. I've got all the bolts loose or removed from the old water pump, and when you go to pop this thing loose, make sure you have a couple of buckets underneath of there catching everything that's coming out. Now I can get to the that hose clamp that's down here. That one was just a 5/16 and I already had it ready on the ratchet. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to use this long screwdriver. I couldn't really get a pair of pliers around that hose, but I'm going to drive this screwdriver in gently around the hose and the metal housing there. Try to just get it loose, and then I might be able to get it by hand later for this lower radiator hose. Alright, I finally got that lower hose off of there. That was a bear. Anyways, here comes the water pump, and it looks like my seal gave out because I got looks like some coolant that was leaking out of there. Something like that, but either way, that's what the inside of it looks like. This doesn't look to be that old. Well, I say it doesn't look to be that old. It's there. It's been there for the 10 years I've owned it. So let's see if I can get you in here. I'll show you a picture of what the housing looks like that goes into the block. So here's what it looks like. I've seen a few pictures and videos of guys working on their stuff, and I see a lot more rust in theirs. I don't know if I'm doing something right, or this has been flushed, or what. But we're gonna go ahead and get the new water pump ready and prepare this surface right here for the new water pump. What I'm going to do for that is I'm going to go around the edge here where you can see all this red kind of goop. Somebody gooped it all up, so obviously somebody's been in here. The factory water pump, I don't believe ever had RTV on it, because the gasket is recessed into the housing of the water pump. So I'm going to take a little razor blade around here and clean all that up and brush off anything that's kind of left over and big. So let's go ahead and get that cleaned up. This is what I'm going to do to clean the surface here. I'm just going to lightly go around this surface with this razor blade, and you can kind of see it's just picking up this junk and getting it out of the way. I just wipe the blade off every once in a while. So I'm just going to go around everything, get it all cleaned up and ready to go. I've got the old water pump and the new water pump placed out here, and you can see that this new water pump is going to need this piece put back on here for the lower radiator hose. This thermostat housing and thermostat here, this water neck, whatever you want to call it, could be replaced. Evidently the new one does not come with that, and that's okay. I can get to it later if I need to. Not a big deal. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a new thermostat in there, and all of these products here, this thermostat that I've got sitting over there, this water pump, I'm going to put some links down below, so check those out if you want to see which ones I purchased, and that'll point you right to them. So it looks like this is going to need a gasket put in here, or an O-ring or something over there for that one, and this is probably going to need an O-ring up here. And then the back side of this water pump had an O-ring, and then somebody put some red gasket sealer around here. If I had to guess, what happened was somebody had worked on this, pulled this off to work on something else, and didn't put a new gasket on there, and just went ahead and did that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with moving the parts that I need over to the next one. And what this is a 8mm 3 8mm head bolts. Looks like that one is different. Interesting. And move these over to the new housing, the new water pump, and put the gasket on the back and get it ready. And put the new thermostat in the new water pump also. For the kit I purchased, it came with this at least, and this larger of the two O-rings, so it looks, well, it's not really an O-ring. I guess it is. Anyways, it's larger than the one that looks like a kind of a round flat gasket. That goes on here, and then this is going to get installed onto here with these new bolts that came with the new water pump. These are 12mm head bolts, and I'm going to go ahead and put those on. Next up is removing these 8mm or 5/16 head bolts that go into this thermostat. Next up is installing the thermostat into the new water pump. So that just sets down in there like that. Here's the gasket that seals the water pump and the what they call the thermostat housing. Now I'm going to make a suggestion that I didn't follow. I would highly suggest getting a new thermostat housing is what this is called, and I'll put a link down below for this too. And what happened to me was I was removing this bolt from the old water pump, and the head snapped off, so the bolt was was broken off in there. This is just aluminum and the steel bolt, and I'm sure it just rusted or whatever over time and just failed. So what I ended up doing was getting, and if that happens to you, that's no big deal. I went to my local parts store and picked these up, but I'll put a link to these bolts in the description also. These are M6 by 1.0 16-1.0 thread, and then they are 20mm long, and these actually have a 10mm head instead of the old ones having an 8mm head. But that doesn't look like to be an issue here because these are a flanged bolt just like the old one was. Here's one of the original ones that was still good. So this has the little, this is one of the original bolts here, and this has a flange on it also. It looks like it's a little bit larger, but it doesn't look like it's going to interfere at all with the with mounting it, so it has plenty of room. So I'm not going to use any sealer or compound or anything on there, but what I am going to do on these, and I think I'm going to do it on these too since I had this happen, I'm actually going to pull these out and put a little bit of anti-seize on there just in case in the future we get a little bit of corrosion in there and I have to replace this thermostat housing. Vice versa, if we have to take this off in the future one day, I'd like to be able to get these out without too much issue. I don't think these are going to be too bad. At least this one, this is a blind hole, so it just stops right there, but this one has an opening down here. So I'm going to go ahead and take these back out and put in some anti-seize. This is the anti-seize I'm going to use. This is a Felpro brand high temp C5A anti-seize lubricant. I'm sure any other brand product would work. This is a copper based because it's high temp. I'm just going to put a little dab right there on the very front of it and get that started in there. I just use one for everything, I guess. The high temp works for high and low temp, right? Now, if you have any suggestions on a different anti-seize that would work better, I would love to hear about it. Just let me know. Or if you have a different product that you like better, maybe grease. Maybe you like a general purpose grease. Maybe that would be a better option. We're going to go ahead and install this thermostat housing now. And I've cleaned up this surface here. This area here is what actually does the sealing. So we're going to lay that on there. First we're going to get some anti-seize on one of these bolts here just to kind of get things started. We'll start this one in this front corner here. That'll hold it in place. Let's go ahead and get the rest of these on here. I'm I'm going to put in these water temperature sensor and this piece that goes to the heater core. This was a 1-inch wrench. I used a 1-inch wrench on this to get this out, and this was an 11/16 came out with that. I'm going to put a little Teflon tape on here. I probably don't need it, but I'm going to go ahead and put on Teflon tape, so probably really won't have any issues with a leak or anything. If you've got a better product, I'd love to hear about that too. I thought about using some type of liquid something, but this is what I had, so here we go. I'll put these in, and then we'll be ready to put this onto the engine. When you're installing Teflon tape, these are right-handed threads, so that means when you're turning it in, righty-tighty, you are clockwise, you are tightening it into there. So what I like to do with Teflon tape, or what you need to do with Teflon tape, is start it and then righty-tighty the tape like we're spinning it on there, and that seems to give it a pretty good seal. So when you turn it in there, it doesn't back the tape off of the threads. And I like to leave a thread or two if I can. This is pretty wide tape, so I'm going to do the best I can. So you just break it off just like that. So now that that's on there, let's go ahead and get this threaded in here. This is the same way. We're going to go ahead and just thread this on just like that. You got to kind of hold that tag end down. You see it slipped on me. I'll hold that tag in until it wraps underneath of what we're working with there. Again, leaving a little bit there. You don't want a bunch of Teflon floating around inside of your cooling system, clogging up a critical system or something. Same thing, we're just going to rip it off, leave a little bit at the very end, thread this in here. We are almost ready to get the water pump installed. The last thing to do would be to put this gasket in place. And it has these little ears on the gasket itself that hold it into place on the water pump. So you just go around pushing this in, getting it ready for the install. This is kind of nice because then it'll kind of hold itself in place. You just want to make sure, like I had it right there, it wasn't kicked over to the side and both of those ears weren't in there. I'm going to go around and push this in, and we will be ready to go ahead and do the install.